It's very fun to get to work at a studio that's always looking at what's next here at Lucasfilm, here inside of Industrial Light and Magic. My name is Rob Bredow. I'm the Chief Creative Officer at Industrial Light and Magic, and I'm SVP of Creative Innovation for Lucasfilm. That means I get to work with a lot of amazing creative people and work on innovative projects here at the studio. I had some meetings with John Knoll and Linwin Brennan and some of the other leaders here at the company. This was just over 10 years ago. And I got introduced by a friend who thought I might be a good fit. And I didn't even realize that my friend was actually leaving the company and was looking for his own replacement, and it's been an amazing road ever since here at the studio. I lightly touched a couple of projects, but the first one that I worked on in a meaningful way was Solo, a Star Wars story. And I was the visual effects supervisor in charge of the overall project. So that means I get to work with all the ILM studios. I work directly for the director, in that case Ron Howard, on the movie. I came on in the very first days of pre-production before we started shooting. I got to work and shoot the whole movie with the team, and then was on every day of post-production on the film all the way to the end. So really, as the person, the right-hand person to the director, making sure that he was getting everything he was looking for in the picture and really understanding what the movie needed to bring the visual storytelling to life. I have really enjoyed getting to do this producer role on these projects, and in general, the way I understand that extra role and the way I've gotten to experience it is having a broad responsibility for the whole picture, or in the case of the Acolyte, the whole series. Getting to work hand in hand with the showrunner, the key creative person in charge. On the Acolyte, working with Leslie Headland was just such a joy, because she had a fantastic vision for the project from the very beginning, and I got to work with her to support her vision, to make sure all the departments were working in sync with each other, to try to get every one of her ideas on the screen in the cleanest way possible. So it's really a great visual storytelling role, and I've just loved getting to work with all these different amazing filmmakers here as a producer on some of their projects. I feel really lucky to have kind of grown up in my professional experience in the visual effects part of filmmaking. It's such a rich and creative and technical part of filmmaking. It's really a wonderful mix. And there's so many talented people that I get to work with every day. Having that as a background and then getting dropped into a show as a producer really does give you a unique perspective. As a visual effects supervisor, you're working with every other department, making sure the whole production is going to go end to end. And then as a producer, it's kind of a similar role, but with a broader responsibility. Instead of just looking at it from the visual effects perspective, you're looking at the whole project the whole time. And that's been really rewarding, because I love the art of visual storytelling. I love getting to work with all these amazing creative people and making sure that they're all everybody's pointed in the same direction, aligned on the same theme. That's a really fun part of the job. So just a few years ago, we were very involved in inventing what became known as the volume, or the LED stage. We call it ILM's stagecraft. And this is a virtual production environment where you can photograph a set against a backing of LEDs, and it looks in the camera like you're on a real location. And that's a pretty fun magic trick to get to do. Now we're leaning into all sorts of new technologies, things like how AI can assist our artists to be efficient, to keep them in that creative headspace and working as efficiently as possible. We're looking at the ways we can continue to integrate real-time into director and artist workflows to keep everyone able to make their best creative decisions at the right time as quickly as possible. These are really these are things we're looking forward to in the next for the next generation of visual storytelling. For me, when I think about designing and making, it's really about getting aligned around what the theme of the thing is that you are creating. I love that part of the design process, is understanding what that inherent theme or inherent message, what are you going for in the big picture? Because then you can have a talented team of designers all pulling in the same direction. And then of course you're looking for the most efficient tools you can use to actually make that thing, whether that's, in our case, an LED wall, or the latest digital effects technique, or some other tool that we're going to bring to the equation. That's what's really fun for me when I think about that phrase. We are big users of Maya, the animation system, inside our film workflows. So it's really the hub of our character animation system, which is in almost all of our pictures. So pretty much every shot gets touched by some way by artists using Maya, this 3D animation system, to help breathe life into these characters, into these shots. At ILM, we do 40 or 50 shows, that's TV shows and movies a year. Maya touches all those shows, and we've been doing this for, next year it's going to be 50 years. So we're talking about hundreds of movies that have been touched by Maya just here at ILM. The tools today that we take for granted in Maya things like really reliable IK skeletons that are easily posable and can be very, very complicated. Those tools didn't even exist when ILM first made the first CG dinosaurs. In fact, those were hand keyframed with all what we call forward kinematics, all posing each bone angle manually. So a ton of respect to those animators who could get that lifelike animation back onto those dinosaurs when you're looking back when digital effects was just becoming a reality. And today, we just take all these very sophisticated tools for granted. You can just say where you want the leg, and it'll calculate where the knee should go automatically in real time, so the animator can be more creative and not being focused just on the mechanics, being focused more on the performance of the characters. So those are the kind of things that have really changed since the beginning of CG, and certainly Maya's been a big part of that here at ILM. So as a judge in the Autodesk Droid Maker Contest, I mean, first, the fact that I even get to say that is so much fun, that I get to see some awesome droids that people are going to design. I'm going to be looking for droids that have a lot of personality. Of course, I'm looking for cool shapes and cool design. They don't all have to be spheres. They can be any cool shape and cool designs. But if you can also communicate a personality, you're going to get extra points from me. You can't get away from R2-D2 and C-3PO, right? I mean, they're just what we all grew up on, or at least what I grew up on. I love those droids. They're so fun. They have so much personality. And then I know I'm not unique to say BB-8 as my third favorite. I mean, he's just got exactly what you look for in an amazing droid, with all that personality and all that communication, even though his actual gestures and everything are actually quite simple. My favorite droid I ever got to work with, well, Phoebe Waller-Bridge isn't a droid, but she played a droid in Solo. She plays L3 in Solo, and she's such an amazing actor and brought so much life to the character. And sometimes people think she was just the voice of L3. She was in that suit. She was in the shot. She was sitting there next to Donald Glover for all these scenes, and she improv'd a lot of those scenes. Of course, she also did an amazing job delivering the writing that John and Larry Kasdan wrote. So it's just an amazing character brought to life. And then the visual effects artist erased the parts of Phoebe's body that you could see and replaced it with all the digital guts that made L3 the droid that she was, that you saw in the picture. So it's such a fun opportunity, and so great of Phoebe to play a character who they were actually going to erase her, but she knew she could bring that personality to life. So it was just an amazing opportunity to get to make a droid with such personality. When you're designing what's going to become a famous droid, right, and a well-loved droid like Pip, you really go through a huge amount of options. And Neil, who leads our creature effects team, he and his team designed so many different versions of these droids. There were some that floated, there were some that did all sorts of different techniques. And then, as you see in the show, Pip ends up being more of like a utility droid, almost like something you just wear on a tool belt, but he can do all these amazing things, kind of like R2 could have all these almost magical tools that can pop out of the droid. Pip's got some of those same features, which was always in the concept from the very first day of the script, but it wasn't clear exactly how that was going to get implemented in the show until Neil and Leslie and the whole team collaborated to actually create Pip as you see him in the show. He's an absolute star, or she. Pip? I'm not sure which. A star. The Acolyte is a really, really fun Star Wars show. And one of the things I love about it is it's set in a fresh spot of the timeline, earlier than we've made any shows so far. So if you know nothing about Star Wars, you can drop right into the show and you're going to understand the entire story. Now, if you've read all of the books and you know everything about the time period it's set in, there's all sorts of things for people who are deep fans as well that you will appreciate. But even if you aren't familiar with that, I love the fact that this action adventure mystery is taking place in a part of the timeline that even newcomers will be able to enjoy. One of the things I love about The Acolyte is the action. I mean, this show has the action packed into it. And Mark Ginther, our stunt coordinator, and Chris Cowan, our second unit director and action director, they were so invested and brought an amazing team. And our actors, they were all into learning how to fight with lightsabers and do a ton of their own stunts. And the stunt team was amazing who supplemented them. So I'm excited for people to see this level of action. I hope people feel like it's the best lightsaber fights we've ever done. We'll see. There's some pretty high bars in Star Wars, but it's certainly up there, and there's a lot of exciting action to look forward to in The Acolyte.